There's been a lot of talk in the news and the media nationally and locally, particularly here in New York, about police brutality or even excessive force of law enforcement. Um, what do you feel about that, and what's your opinion about some of those issues?
Well, I had somebody tell me that even older, rich white guys are scared of the police. And that's absolutely true, that your average American, if he's driving down the New Jersey Turnpike and he sees the little lights whirling behind him and he gets pulled over by a state trooper, he's scared. He doesn't feel that he's a citizen who has a right to be treated with respect. He's scared of the trooper. And essentially the basis of policing in America has been based on the use of force and intimidation. Now, many people, like in the Black Lives Matter movement, get focused on police interactions with black people, but that's not where the real problem is. The problem is how we police. It just gets...
Period. You mean in
period,
general?
Period in general.
Across the
white
board.
people, black people, Omaha, Nebraska, New York. The difficulty is that the poorer you are and the blacker you are, the more dramatic the impacts are going to be, because the policemen are intimidated by people they think can give them trouble. They feel that they can hit a 17-year-old black kid on the head with their flashlight and get away with it. They feel that if they hit me on the head with their flashlight, there probably is going to be a problem. So that the more vulnerable you are, whether you're black or white, the poorer you are, the more likely you're going to face truly unacceptable police activity. But the problem really is that police have been and are trained to maintain order by intimidating people and by actually physically abusing.
So you're saying that's a training. That's the training
from
the tree apple. I mean,
it's not like there are some bad apples in the barrel. The barrel is bad.
Am I hearing you correctly? You're saying policing in general in this country, in its entirety, is faulty.
Yeah, and you know, if you speak to Bill Bratton, for instance, the commissioner of police in New York, he says that he wants to be able to arrest people for marijuana possession. And you ask him why. The cases will be thrown out of court. It's a waste of time. And he says, well, it's part of the toolkit of a police officer, because a police officer needs to be able to threaten people with arrest in order to maintain order and compliance. And even if you talk to serious, good people who are in the police business, it is intimidation and threat that they see as the primary tool a policeman has. I can shoot you. I can hit you with my stick. I can arrest you. And that is the basis of policing in America. And the police officers are trained to do that. The people who lead the police departments actually believe that that's the way policing should be done. And if you made a change where you just said to policemen, you must be courteous to citizens, and enforce that. And any police officer caught cursing at a citizen or not responding to a citizen politely had a 7-day suspension. That would make a huge difference. Right now, you can't be confident that if you go up to a police officer and say, you're not doing the right thing here, officer, that he's going to say, yes, sir, but why do you think I'm doing anything wrong? He's just as likely to try to intimidate you. So it really requires, people have been murdered by police officers, and we see that now more because we actually have the videotapes. And if you talk to police officials, they will tell you that if you have two policemen and they are about to arrest a person and one of the policemen yells gun, that the other policeman is justified in pumping 6 bullets into the suspect. That is police procedure. Police procedure in New York City does not say, don't shoot your gun at somebody unless he shoots at you. It says, whenever you believe that the person you're dealing with is a threat to you, kill him.
So you're saying that in the recent Tamir Rice case in Cleveland, where there were no indictments for the police officers who were shot at Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old, the justification there was, the prosecutor said that, well, hey, they reasonably fear for their lives. So, and you feel that is a training issue, in your opinion? That's an issue that this issue can be readjusted.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, if you tell police officers, whenever you fear for your life, you're justified to shoot to kill, you're going to have police officers killing people. And they're more likely to be black, and they're more likely to be poor, and they're more likely to be young. But this is really, even goes deeper than training. It goes to the concept of how you police and how you maintain order. And that requires a national conversation, because a change in policing in this country is going to require a lot of adjustment. Most of the people who work as policemen today are not really even psychologically capable of policing without intimidation.
So you say any information in that regard with the police department is a long-term issue. And right now,
and it's an issue that pays the price. I mean, you're looking in Baltimore now, where after the Gray death, the police department doesn't know what to do, because they've been trained to keep order by being terrorists in the street. They've been trained.
So let's be clear: police officers, terrorists in the street.
And that's what they, you know, if you get people who are talking to you in a candid way, they may not refer to themselves as terrorists, but they're saying, I need to be able to intimidate the people in the street in order to stop them from doing bad things. And that was what was happening. In fact, Martin O'Malley, one of my opponents in the Democratic primary, was responsible when he was mayor of the city of Baltimore for putting in place a reign of terror in black neighborhoods. Now, many of the people who were calling for this reign of terror were black people who lived in the neighborhoods, who were tired of not being able to walk on the streets because of thugs and drug sales, and they said, I don't care, do whatever you have to do to the bad guys so that my wife can walk to the grocery store without being abused. And so now the police are being told they can't do this anymore in Baltimore. And they don't know what to do, and as a result the murder rate is doubled, the robbery rate is tripled, and people in Baltimore are very upset. So when you make these kinds of changes in policing, you're taking away the old tools that people have, it's going to be primarily the most vulnerable people who suffer. So you talk about Black Lives Matter. You know, if you look at Baltimore, the number of black people dying in violence has doubled since the police became less intimidating.
Well, so you're saying
that's a price that has to be paid, and in all around the world, it's always the poorest and the least powerful who pay. You know, I live on 86th Street in Manhattan. I've never had a price. In 1978, my neighborhood was safe. Safe now, but if you live in East New York, you are actually on the bubble, and if the level of safety goes down, it means you're getting mugged. It means your son is getting shot at in the street.
So what do citizens do in that regard? I mean, you're saying there's a problem.
How important is it? Do you want the police to maintain order at the price of intimidating citizens and killing the odd citizen?
So those are all two alternatives. That's the only alternatives.
Well, the other alternative is to start retraining the police, and put cameras on them so they're accountable. In New York, we have something called a chokehold that killed a fellow named Garner out in Staten Island. There were 1,000, and the police department outlawed the use of the chokehold because it was dangerous. In the year before Garner was killed, there were 1,000 complaints of people who had been choked by policemen. Not a single policeman was disciplined. So what you have to do is you have to decide whether restrictions on police activity are going to be imposed. So if I was mayor of New York, for instance, I would say any police officer who kills any citizen with a gun, even a criminal, doesn't work on the street anymore. I wouldn't necessarily fire him, but I would say, okay, now you can work inside in the property room, or you can work on figures or reports, or whatever. But I don't want guys who the cumulative of their method of policing is that they have to shoot people. They shouldn't be policemen. And they may have been saving a life when they shot this guy. And I'm not calling for them to go to jail or anything like that. Just that I would want, if I was mayor of New York, people who could maintain order without killing people.
Well, that position is more radical than most radicals on the left and the right, actually.
Yeah, absolutely, but it is, and there will be a price for that. If you really tell policemen they cannot use the tools that they have been trained to use, it's very hard to retrain people at all, especially after they've worked as a policeman for 20 years. And we can't recruit enough in New York, where I come from. We cannot recruit enough qualified policemen to fill the spaces on the police force now. If I was mayor of New York and I had to let go 50% of the police because they were psychologically improper for police activity, it would be years before I could replace those police officers. And in the interim, everybody in the city of New York would probably be less safe. But this is a long-term problem. Short-term prices have to be paid for long-term solutions. And it's a question as to whether people are willing to do that, whether they have enough hope in the future and enough concern for the future to pay prices today.
So now I just noticed with the Republican debates, they haven't addressed this issue at all. With the Democratic debates, they've mentioned it a little bit, but they haven't given any substance about policing. Do you feel this should be a concern in a debate platform?
It should be, but it's not, because it's a difficult problem and nobody wants to face it. I always remember there was a television commercial with Terry Bradshaw, and he and his buddies are sitting around and they're waiting for his blind date to appear. And the bell rings, and there's this 65-year-old woman with white hair, and she looks at Bradshaw and she says, "I'm your blind date." And Bradshaw closes the door in her face, turns to his buddies and yells, "Punt!" And sometimes when the choices are so difficult, people just close the door and say punt. And like you say, it's true of both Democratic debates and Republican debates, and the radical leftists on the Democratic side have no intention of addressing this question, and the conservative Republicans have no interest either. So it will not be addressed, and the truth is that the press doesn't even ask questions about it.
No, they don't.
So you have an agreement of the elites that this is not this issue is too difficult to deal with. Now, I'm very fond of saying that there are simple solutions to most problems. This is one doesn't have a simple solution, and is going to take decades to deal with.